Adoptions gives me a purpose in my work. It's very hopeful work. We come after the storm, hopefully, but they are out of that unsafe situation, or they are out of that crisis situation. It gives me hope that, there is healing, there is recovery, there is some type of safety that we can establish for a child.
Welcome everyone to The Service Station, a podcast brought to you by Riverside County Department of Public Social Services, also known as DPSS, and now we're in both audio and video formats. I'm your host, Gene Kennedy. Today we're spotlighting one of our incredible social workers. We call them social service practitioners here at DPSS, and she joins me now. I'm so glad to have you. Welcome.
Thank you, Gene, for having me.
So I want to dive into your story, and I want to start with just, getting to know you a little bit better, how your career started in social services, specifically in child welfare. How did you focus on a career in social work?
To be quite honest, I think my story is that of many other social workers. When I talk to colleagues in the field, I became a social worker by coincidence. It wasn't what I initially planned to do, though I always had, I was always inclined to helping professions, and I knew I wanted to do something in government, something where I could work with the public. I became a social worker because I responded to an ad right when I first graduated with my bachelor's degree in Spanish, not in social work, to a job that the only requirement was to be, proficient in Spanish. So I took the job. I went for the interview. I got the job, and then they told me, okay, great, it's a group home for undocumented children. And I fell in love with the type of work. I fell in love with the service delivery, with the case management portion of it, and I thought, let me go back to school and do my master's in social work. So I ended up in school, and in school I did my internship, and I did my internship here at Riverside County, DPSS Children's Services. So I was an intern for a year, and after I graduated, I got hired on about a year after that. So I've been here since on about 2012.
Take us further back, though, in your childhood, because there were some pivotal experiences, trauma, that you even went through that inspired you to choose this field. What happened?
Yes. I was very blessed and fortunate to have a safe childhood. I grew up with two parents up until my father passed away when I was 11 years old. He died in a car accident, so it was from one day to the next. I lost a parent, and my world changed. And, it's a crucial age for a child developmentally, so I struggled. It was hard for me. It was hard for me to be heard. It was hard for me to even speak on what I needed. And alongside, I saw my mother struggling. I saw my siblings. So I realized early on that there was a gap in services, or at least in my community. And I guess subconsciously I didn't know it yet, but I knew that I wanted to work in some type, like I said, a helping profession. So as I went through school, and right before I went off to college, I had some amazing opportunities to do volunteer work where I worked with a lot of orphan children abroad. Like I said, just working, with the community that I felt, I wish I would have had those services when I was a child.
So you reflected on those experiences, and that helped motivate you and drive you in your education.
That was my purpose, I feel, my underlying purpose and reason.
Your role as an adoption social worker, there was a point where you started your career in investigations. You were in that for 5 years?
I was in investigative services for 5 years, yes.
Okay, and then you went immediately to become an adoptions social worker?
Yes, I had brief experience. Right before coming to the county, right when I graduated with my master's, I actually I was working for a foster family agency who was licensed in adoptions, and I got some training by them, and I was doing a few home studies while I waited for the county to call me for full-time employment. So I was actually very fortunate that I had that experience. So it was an easy transition when I requested a transfer request, when I saw there was a position open in adoptions. Investigative services was very rewarding. I always say I think that's where social workers should begin, because it it shows you if this type of work is for you or not. And it's important to see the very beginning of a child's experience, a child that ends up in the situation in our department. It's important to see their story from the very beginning to really understand, the middle, the service delivery, do we do all the way to adoptions to where we try to find permanency. So going back to my investigative services time, I knew it was time for a change. Like I said, I was there for 5 years. I very much enjoyed it. I had amazing supervisors. I was very fortunate in that sense, and that's kind of what shaped me as a child welfare worker. But I always loved the clinical assessment part of, families and just helping families stabilize, as best possible, or finding that permanent situation or that, I guess, that glimpse of hope for children. Though investigative services was very rewarding and you are doing amazing work and, helping families out of a crisis and helping a child out of a possibly very unsafe situation, over time it could be very difficult and it could be hard to see, what the purpose is in all this. Unfortunately, in the public's eye, we're also not always seen positively. So I knew that I wanted to take my career, a little further here in the department and to see another side of child welfare. So I was very fortunate to have been, accepted. My transfer request was accepted into adoptions about 8 years ago. And though I had some experience, the bulk of my experience, everything I learned here in the department. And it was definitely a change coming from investigative services. Though the work is very similar, we're always assessing for risk and safety. It was very rewarding for me to be able to have an opportunity to see the end of a case, to see that the end of a case for us is, really the permanent situation for a child and the situation we leave a child in. So that I took that responsibility very seriously, and I've enjoyed every minute of it since then. There's still a lot of assessment, there's still a lot of risk and safety, and there's still a lot of situations where we don't leave a child permanently in a home or adoption is not final. But for the most part, we have amazing families and amazing homes, and it's beautiful to see, the culmination of a child's situation, the struggles and
in a safe permanent home.
In a safe permanent home.
Resolution,
and to see the resiliency of children, how much they can overcome, and I guess the stamina and the love and strength of a community, like caretakers that take them in, whether they're relatives or not. It's a huge act of love towards a child.
And when that happens, you're essentially out of their lives, right? I mean, when
an adoption is final, it is, they are the legal parents. That child is no longer a dependent, and our case is closed. We don't have contact with them thereafter. Hopefully, that's unless they need our help. We do have post-adoption services, though, and those are for the most part voluntary, and they can come to us with anything they need thereafter. So there are post-adoption services for children, for the caregivers. That is available as well.
What drives you to keep working in adoption specifically? Because this is not an easy job. It's a difficult job. And what is it that motivates you, that keeps you in this specific line of work?
I think for me, adoptions gives me a purpose in my work. It's very hopeful work. Like I said, we come after the storm, hopefully. I mean, there's still things to work out, and children are by no means healed or always in a much better place, but they are out of that unsafe situation, or they are out of that crisis situation. So it gives me hope that, there is healing, there is recovery, there is some type of just permanency and safety that we can establish for a child.
So we've been with you at Adoption Finalization Day. It's a big moment, happens every November for National Adoption Awareness Month, where there are literally dozens of children who are adopted in a single day. You also, of course, help complete these adoptions year round. What is that moment like when you actually see that completion take place in the courtroom?
Yes, well, like you mentioned, Adoption Day is a beautiful celebratory event that we hold in November to honor Adoption Month, National Adoption Month throughout the country. But here in Riverside County, we hold an adoption event where we have about 60 to 70 children being finalized, all simultaneously in different courtrooms. But yes, we have finalization hearings. I mean, every few times a week. And between all the adoption social workers in the county, we finalize quite a few kids in Riverside County every year. But for that moment specifically, when I'm in the courtroom as a witness with these families, with my families, I get an immense sense of closure, and I get, I guess you would say joy and just, relief. So I can only imagine what the families feel. If I feel closure, they've been waiting for years. I really just come on to their journey last year. So for me, it's immense satisfaction. I feel very humbled and very fortunate, in that situation, in that moment. In adoption, we do encourage continued contact with birth families. So, we make sure we hold those meetings where, what's going to be the plan for this child to continue seeing his aunt or his siblings that are in care. And it makes, it's best case scenario for a child in this situation, having a loving family that may not be his biological family, but still having connections and ties to his birth family and his original community.
So if we have folks who are watching, listening to this, maybe considering getting into the field of social work, whether it be child welfare, adoptions, any advice that you would have for them?
Yes, I mean, I've had a wonderful positive experience here at DPSS and as a social worker in child welfare. The department has given me a lot of opportunity to also grow as a professional. Like I said, I came in here with my master's degree, but I also had a plan to be licensed as a licensed clinical social worker. And the department did support me in that. So I got my licensure hours and my licensure through the department. And now, that is something else I also do. I'm a licensed clinician. So the department has so many opportunities to kind of just, have a position that best fits you, what you want. And like I said, for me, and I think I can speak for all my colleagues in this field, if you're doing this work, it's because it is your calling. If you're here long enough, because it is because it's giving you purpose, and it's not the most glamorous profession, but it's definitely one that's very emotionally rewarding. And like I said, I know that my colleagues would not correct me on this one. I think we're here for a reason.
Yeah. Thank you so much for just taking your time and sharing your story with us. Is there anything else maybe you want to add I didn't ask you?
No, I think I just, would like to add that again, our work is difficult, but there are amazing social workers out there that do great work every day, and there's amazing leaders in the field as well that, support these social workers. And above all, our community is a very loving one, a very resilient one. We have great caretakers, and, these children, no matter what you throw at them, they're so strong and they're so resilient, and I'm honored to be able to see that every day.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking your time again and coming out in the service station. We appreciate it. So to our listeners and viewers, if Angie's story has inspired you, you heard her talking about some of the career opportunities that are available here at DPSS, and we'd encourage you to explore those opportunities. You could go on this website. It's dpssjobs.org. Learn more about our team, how you can join it, make a difference as well in the lives of children and families in Riverside County. Also want to mention that if you would like to foster or adopt a child here in Riverside County, you can call this number. It's 1-800-665-KIDS, 1-800-665-5437. Don't forget to like, subscribe, review the podcast. We appreciate it. It really helps us out to make a better podcast for you. And of course, you can follow us on social media. Whatever platform, we're on all the major platforms. You can follow us at Rivco DPSS. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode.